I apologize, I had technical difficulties with the recording of the audio. A setting was changed, so I had to redub some of it, but enjoy.
Hey friends and soon to be friends, just like the Monitor in Crisis on Infinite Earths, I myself have rebooted this series. It's in a new location and with a different format. It's going to be a longer video, but I hope you enjoy it.
Beware of spoilers. For 1 year between April 1985 and March 86, DC changed the course of comics as we knew it. As editor of Green Lantern, Marv Wolfman received a letter from a fan asking why a character didn't recognize Green Lantern even though he worked with him years prior in a previous issue. This letter helped kickstart the idea to combine all of the DC multiverse into one unified DCU for ease of access to new readers. The epic was originally planned for 1983, but due to the large scale of research, was pushed back to 1985, which perfectly corresponded with DC's 50th anniversary, planting seeds as soon as 1982 with a glimpse of the Monitor in the new Teen Titans number 21. With the help of frequent collaborator George Perez, Marv Wolfman's Crisis on Infinite Earths would pave the way for large-scale crossovers in comics and the yearly event. With a high death count and complete reboot of DC's history, the original Crisis is one of the most timeless and impactful comics in DC and maybe all of comics history. The story begins with the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, two powerful beings as old as time. The Monitor, with the goal to stop the Anti-Monitor's destruction of multiverses, sends Harbinger with a plea for help, calling upon heroes and villains from across time, space, and the multiverse. Opening with the destruction of different Earths, we find the villains of Earth 3 trying in vain to stop the antimatter wave. A few panels later, we meet Earth 3's only hero, Lex Luthor. Knowing that nothing can stop the forthcoming destruction, we are treated to a sequence akin to Superman's origin as Lex sends his only kid Alexander to parallel universe Earth 1. More on him later. As time goes on and the Monitor's plan kicks into action, he is killed by Harbinger, whom at the moment is possessed by the Anti-Monitor. Having completed the mission, she is released of his grip, and with the death of the Monitor, all 5 remaining parallel Earths get put into limbo, keeping them safe. While in the Monitor's care, Alexander ages rapidly and gains the ability to teleport between the Limbo Earths and the Antimatter universe. Having snatched Psycho Pirate and forcing him to join his cause, the Anti-Monitor tells the pirate to use his powers to invoke strong emotions on his victims, trying to make heroes and villains from parallel Earths fight and stop the heroes and villains on the Monitor's side. But when the Monitor dies and his powers put the parallel Earths in limbo, this plan fails. Farah, who is cursed with watching all Earths perish, learns where the Anti-Monitor resides and helps bring the heroes and villains to bring about his destruction. Destroying the device that would end the remaining worlds, and injured Anti-Monitor running away, the gigantic team believes they have won, but at a terrible cost: the death of Supergirl. With the war supposedly behind them, the team goes their separate ways, but while they relax, the Anti-Monitor builds a new suit and machine to destroy the remaining Earths. This plan is spoiled by Barry Allen, the Flash, who destroys a cannon and dies in the process. Angry, the Anti-Monitor goes back in time to enact his revenge. Knowing this, a magical upgraded Spectra forms a team to combat him. With a magic overload, the Spectra causes the remaining 5 Earths to merge into one universe, bringing all the characters back to the present with only the few that went to the dawn of time remembering the events. Down but not out, the Anti-Monitor tries a final time, transporting the new universe to the Anti. But this plan is foiled by 4 remaining characters that remember the true past: Kal-El, Alexander, Superboy Prime, and help from Darkseid. Finally defeating the Anti-Monitor, Alexander teleports Kal-El, Lois, Superboy Prime, and himself to a pocket dimension, dubbing it a paradise. In an epilogue, we see Psycho Pirate remembering the past in Arkham.
Thanks, voiceover me. We try to make it short, but with such an epic, it was very hard to abbreviate it. Now let's get into the story. Going right into the comic, it starts off fast-paced and just go, and it does keep that pace with some character defining moments and some slowdown, but it doesn't really feel like slowdown. It just feels very fast and to the point, and does really good in keeping you engaged and making you want to keep reading it. They put some cliffhangers in there, which I'm not a fan of cliffhangers normally, but these cliffhangers with just the pacing of how fast everything was and just how everything went unfolding and just all the moments, you're just like, oh man, this sucks. Like, I want to read the next thing right this second. The really great thing with the writing is Wolfman really showed his respect and care for the characters. Like, he looked into each character, how they act, how their personality is, how they interact with other characters, how they don't want to interact with other characters. Like, he showed a lot of respect and love for these characters in the DC universe, and it really shined through in the comics because Batman feels like Batman, Supergirl feels like Supergirl. All the characters feel how they should be, and he really has a great understanding of a lot of characters in that universe. And with the pacing being so fast and so much going on, it sometimes feels like pages or panels could be a waste, but I didn't get that feeling at all with this book. It felt like every single thing mattered in here. Every panel mattered, art-wise and story-wise. Like, you couldn't gloss over anything. Every single moment mattered. For such a big story and being one of the first big crossover events, it was very ambiguous. It could have just failed and just skyrocketed out of control. And when I was reading about it, DC wasn't really keen on doing it, but then they kind of got talked into it, so then they actually did it, and I mean, that turned out beautifully. But it could have just derailed at any moment. That just so many characters, so many things going on. That's a big deal, and it's really awesome that it worked out and just changed history. In this, we get some new characters, mainly the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, Farah, and the Harbinger. I hope I'm saying her name right. And one of the issues, we do get like backstories for them, and they're quick, like 1, 2, 3 page backstories. They're quick to the point, and it tells what it needs to, and it's done. It doesn't linger or anything, and they're accessible backstories. So it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense, and I understand that now. And it was fun. It was a break from the action and stuff, and it was nice to see the motivations or what happened. There was deaths in these, and some of the main ones were Supergirl and Barry Allen Flash, and those probably hit hard back then, and I know they still hit hard to where Flash was dead for a good amount of time. I think Supergirl was dead for a few years and then came back in a different form. Barry Allen was dead until about Flash Rebirth by Jeff Johns, so he was gone for a while, and that really changed comics, especially for the Flash and interactions and stuff. But it was a big deal now, and it's still a pretty big deal and pretty devastating and sad rereading it. It's like, oh, I know they come back and I already know they die, but it's like, man, that sucks because I do like these characters. And then in another issue, they did something called the Monitor tapes, which was a long, kind of like a Saturday, Sunday comic strip panel on the bottom, which was just tapes that the Monitor made and stuff that Harbinger was going through and getting info. I thought that was really cool because they could have done it like a lot of comics do and do like a backup story, have a bunch of pages and panels in the back, but instead they did it to where it only takes up like a few panels on the bottom so they can tell their main story and then you can read the bottom, and it doesn't take too many pages and ruin it or make them have to double up the page count. No, it's just on the bottom and it's done and done. And it's like, wow, that's a really cool idea. And I know some other people years after have done that in their own comics because it makes sense. Another part that was really awesome to me, might not have should have been awesome to me, or just I never really thought of until rereading it, but Garth, who I believe is Aqualad, I wasn't big into Aquaman. I'm still iffy, like I've read some Aquaman, but not that much. Two of the people he loved dies, and so he takes them and he's trying to get them healed in Atlantis or wherever they live, and they're like, I'm sorry they didn't make it. He's like, none of you guys with superpowers can save them. Like, we have all these powers, but yet no one can save them. Like, what are we doing with these powers? Like, it's a waste. And I thought that was really cool because he was just pleading for his friend's life, and they're like, I'm sorry, we can't do anything. And you never see that in comics anymore. Someone pleading to save with the powers. Like, we have all these powers, but yet no one can save them. I thought that was really cool, even though I don't care about any of those characters, but I'm like, that's kind of heartbreaking. Oh yeah, and I got a cat. Now the art, which is one of my favorite parts of this. It's done by George Perez, who I can't put into words, but he is a master at what he does. The art in here is some of the most beautiful art you ever see. Like, he knows, just, it's amazing. It's hard to put into words, but The art is just the best art I've ever seen, and it still holds up all these years, and it's just unspeakable, the beauty of what he can draw. And then when I was digging into it some more, it turns out that Perez actually looked into all these characters, like how they look, their facial animation, just everything they do and how they act body-wise, so he could get them correct. Like, that is insanely dedicated and just amazing. Just the art is, the story's amazing, but the art really kicks into gear. He can get the littlest details that don't even matter and make it matter, just because he makes the art so profoundly beautiful, and every character looks great. The art is just so fantastic. Anytime there's a 2-page spread or anything like that, I get lost just staring at it, because all the detail and just how everything looks. The whole book is a masterpiece alone from the art. Story makes it a masterpiece too, but the art really kicks into gear and should be in a museum. The art is just insane, and it still lives up beautifully today. So it has a good amount of tie-ins, and they recently released one in hardcover, and they're releasing the second one in hardcover. I have actually never read any of the tie-ins, but I do plan on getting both hardcovers when the second one comes out, so I can read it and give my thoughts on it. But that's a great thing, is even after not reading any of the tie-ins, I still don't feel like I'm missing anything. So, with the DC Universe receiving a full reboot, what follows?
A handful of characters getting new rebooted histories, and Sirius is that answer. With Wonder Woman receiving the treatment by Perez Wine and Greg Potter, Superman by John Bryan, and Wally West taking over Barry Allen's Flash mantle, to name a few. Batman wasn't as affected as much, only receiving an updated origin by Frank Miller. With the merging of universes, some characters from the Fawcett publications and Charlton Comics made their way into the main DC universe. With such a huge effect in stories, a new term was coined for the eras, now known as pre- and post-crisis. To help guide this new universe, Wolfman and Perez made the limited series titled History of the DC Universe, which is included in the hardcover deluxe edition. Years later, the world was treated to Infinite Crisis and Final Crisis, completing what would be known as the Crisis Trilogy. With all earth-shattering events, many stories felt aftershocks from this crisis.
Its legacy is honestly a huge one, and it may be the most important comic in DC and maybe all of comics history. It's kind of crazy, just one little letter kind of changed history. Plus, from all this, we learned that DC really loves crisis in a lot of their titles. So I read this comic years ago. I got it from a library and I didn't know what I was getting into. I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. So I read it, I'm like, oh man, that was epic. But I really didn't know the history of any of the characters or anything in the story. I just kind of went in blind, but I still enjoyed it. So that is pretty cool, and means they really wrote something very accessible to new readers, which is smart and kind of what they were going for, to change the history with that. It does help to know some of the backstories of characters and some of the stuff going into it, but then again, you really don't have to, and that's what's so grand about it. So that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the new format. Let me know what you think of the format. If you like it, if you don't like it, just comment down below. And if you enjoy this, subscribe, because I'm going to be doing more videos. And as usual, thanks for watching. If you enjoy this comic, or if you don't, just let me know why or why not down in the comments, because it is a really good comic, and it's one most people should read, just alone for the story, but also the historical significance. My cat is licking my hand now.